All right, welcome everyone. Today we're here to talk about the capstone requirement for the DSBA program. And there are currently two ways to satisfy that requirement, which is kind of new to the program. Previously, the internship option was the only option that you had. We've introduced a second option that we'll talk about later on. But first, let's go ahead and get through and talk through the internship option, which we've had for many years now. So the internship capstone is a fantastic way to round out your DSBA, program by having you actually use your skills in the private industry. So you have to be able to find an opportunity with a company, and that's sometimes the hardest part. So we'll talk about what you can do in terms of finding those opportunities and networking to make sure that you find an internship opportunity. We'll talk about the proposal process. So once you find a partner, what the process looks like to go through to make an internship proposal. We'll talk a little bit about timelines, some do's and don'ts. And then, as I mentioned, we'll talk about the thesis option, which is separate from the internship option that we currently have. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so why the internship? The internship is going to be the preferred way for you to make a finalization on your DSBA degree because it shows that have that on your resume. You have something that says, I've not only obtained these skills, but I've used them in industry. So it's a fantastic option. It's always something that if I see that on someone's resume, I would certainly ask them more about that internship that they attended. So it's basically a way for you to use all of your data science skills, as I mentioned, in a real world environment. So you have to have 21 credit hours prior to starting the internship. We can make exceptions in some cases, because I know finding an internship can be tough, but we want this to be near the end of your program, basically. You have to have all the skills that you need in order to undertake that internship. Once you have that basic requirement, as I mentioned before, it is your job to find a company to partner with and who wants to take you on as an intern. And that could be an unpaid internship or it could be a paid internship. Some companies have very structured internship programs. Other companies have very informal processes. So a lot of that will depend on the company that you partner with, but someone at that company is going to be your mentor or preceptor. And that mentor is going to be the key person that you work with throughout your internship that will define what you're doing for that particular company. And then the other thing is we need you to have a proposal. And this is something that you might not know at the very beginning of an internship. So we make this due within 2 weeks of the start of your internship. But basically, you work with your mentor to figure out what you're going to be working on during the duration of your internship. So you're going to figure out, like, if it's a project, what the goals of the project are, or what your activities are going to be. And the basic requirement from an overall perspective is that you have a minimum of 160 hours that you're working on this internship. And then another key requirement is that you're going to have to do some significant amount of data science work. So it's possible that you could find an internship that would meet all of these requirements, but if it's just something where you're doing some basic data engineering and not really more so data science, then that wouldn't be enough necessarily. But the internship should be a great opportunity. So let's go to the next slide, please. And this is something that Dr. Hertel speaks to all the time. And as we go through our Monday seminars, hopefully you're exposed to all the different companies that need data scientists in the Charlotte region. It's a lot bigger than you think. Everyone initially thinks the banks, are the key, hiring engines of Charlotte, but that's really no longer true. We have so many companies in so many different industries, not just finance and fintech, but retail, energy, engineering, consulting, tech startups, all sorts of different companies in the area. So there are a lot of companies looking for help, a lot of companies hiring, and there's always ebbs and flows with the individual needs. But we found that generally speaking, there's still a strong demand for data science, obviously. All right, next slide, please. All right, so once you find a company, what kinds of projects could you be working on? It really could be a lot of different things. So there is no one size fits all. There's no one type of internship that you need to worry about. Every business and every organization that you potentially partner with will have their own needs. And sometimes they're going to have, basic needs like they need to do some data gathering and data cleaning. All of that is absolutely fine and kind of normal in a typical internship. But as I mentioned before, you need to be sure that you have some significant amount of data science work. So it could be that you're building a predictive model to help that company. You could be using models to figure out, like, is this a loan approval process, or, is this a model that helps with productivity in the organization? It reduce costs maybe, or you're doing something to increase revenue. Or if you're in a healthcare company, maybe you're making better patient outcomes, but you're doing something to improve the company, right? And you're using data science to improve and help the company in some way. And you might not get all the way to the finish line, but your work has to be on that trajectory where there's a good line of sight between the work that you're doing and the potential benefit to the company, essentially. So a lot of places that data science can be used in, predictive modeling is a good one whenever you can estimate things that are hard to estimate. And you'll be surprised at how often that happens. Usually there's opportunities within every organization. All right, next slide, please. Okay. So, what we recommend as you think about the internship is that you start almost immediately looking for a company to partner with. So, don't wait until that last semester to start looking for an internship opportunity. We really want you to really start your networking, build your network, start building up your resume, working with the Career Center. I know one of the things that Dr. Hertel mentions in the seminars frequently is, you have to build a portfolio of work. I think that's a great recommendation. So figuring out how to build yourself up early on is really important to make a successful connection with a company, so that you can go for this internship. So don't think of this as something that you want to start at the very end of the DSBA program. Really start thinking about it right now, essentially. All right, so once you find a company and you have a mentor within that company, you will have to put together a proposal. And the proposal, we accept those proposals in a Google form. And it's not overly exhaustive. It's just a few paragraphs of what you're going to be doing, the tasks that you're going to be undertaking. And we're using these proposals to make sure that you meet the minimum requirements necessary for DSBA 6400, as well as have that significant data science work that we were talking about before. All right, so that proposal is a big part of the process, and we recommend that you get started with that proposal as soon as possible, so that we can authorize you to enroll in DSBA 6400. So you won't be able to enroll until you get that proposal together, and then you've got that proposal submitted to us so that we can approve it. So that's an important part of the process, and especially for the HCIP 6400. So we talked with them separately, but if you're in healthcare informatics, they also have an internship option. Sometimes we ask them to do that a little bit earlier because sometimes health organizations need a specific letter of agreement with the university, and they go through more administrative process there as well. All right. So once you have your proposal together and you've submitted that and it's been approved, and now that you're registered in DSBA 6400, you'll find that during the internship, we don't actually meet together as a class, but there are some deliverables that you'll need to submit for 6400. The first deliverable in that class is a project plan, and that project plan basically outlines what the activities are going to be during your internship, usually the bigger bullets of what you're trying to accomplish. And then as your internship progresses, approximately every 2 to 3 weeks, there will be a progress report that you'll submit, which is usually a 1 or 2 page update on where you are with your project plan. And we totally expect that sometimes internships will change, right? Sometimes the needs of a company will change, and that's absolutely fine. So even though your project plan said you were going to do one, two, and three, maybe your company got to, bullet point number two, and then they decided they needed to take a left-hand turn and do something completely different. That can be okay. So the way that you would submit that update is through your progress reports. And then you can always talk with the faculty advisor, which for this year is me. And you can say, hey, I'm worried that my internship isn't going as expected, or I'm not getting enough data science work done, or whatever it is. That's a good cause for you to reach out to the faculty advisor. But during your internship, you're going to have 160 hours of work. Hopefully, you're going to have a lot of fun, learn a lot of things, help your company, and do some great data science work. And at the end of that internship, or at the end of the semester, rather, for 6400, you're going to have to put together a final paper and a final presentation. And the presentation is conducted over Zoom. It's a 10-minute presentation with 5 minutes questions and challenges to your presentation. And then your final paper basically outlines all the work that you did during your internship. So that's it. And then after your internship, we do reach out to the companies for for student evaluations. And then we also allow you to evaluate your experience with that company. We're looking at both sides of this as well. So that's it for the overall process. And I saw a little bit of a question pop up. Carly, do you mind reading that for me?
So the question is there a template or example to follow for the letter of agreement and then also for the activity plan?
Yes. So for all of your deliverables, there's an example that we have in the Canvas site. So once you're registered for 6400, you'll get access to all the exemplars, and you'll say, "Oh, this is an exact example of what I need to do and deliver for the class." The letter of agreement is specific to the HCIP program and is probably does not apply to you. There is a mentor letter of understanding, which is not a legal document, and it's not something that you necessarily have to worry about. It's just essentially an email that I send out to the mentors that say, hello, my name is Robert Fox, and I understand that you have a student, working with you. Please reach out to me if you have questions. And we also set the expectation that you're going to be doing some data science work for that organization. So the mentor letter of understanding is not something that you should necessarily get worked up too much about. It's not something that is legally binding contract in any way. It's a very simple communication. It's more of a level set. But as I mentioned before, when healthcare companies are involved, sometimes we have a little bit more of a formal agreement in those cases because you may be dealing with sensitive healthcare information. Was there one more question?
Nope, I think we answered it in the chat, so I think we're good.
All right, very good. All right, let's move along.
Actually, there is one question about a personal project and whether or not that's acceptable.
Okay. Strictly speaking, for DSBA 6400, a personal project is not acceptable at this point in time. So you need to work with an organization, and that organization, it doesn't have to be a for-profit organization. It could be a nonprofit organization. But if you have a passion of some particular topic that you want to go deep on, then you might be leaning towards the thesis option, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. But to my knowledge, and it's never been approved, I don't think, is that anyone to work on a personal project. You need to find someone to work with for your internship. All right, so finding an internship, as I mentioned, starts on day one. This is a good slide to just reemphasize that, right? So where do you find a company to talk to? You have to be engaged, and that's really hard to do. Sometimes we're all busy. Some of us have jobs and we're dealing with our academic goals. But you really need to start networking and finding these companies to work with. Going to the Monday seminars is a great one. Building up all of your presence online in terms of not just your resume. We recommend maybe having a GitHub site where you can show off your work, make a portfolio of work that you can show people. Make sure that your LinkedIn looks professional and polished. Make sure you're good on social media, right? Because companies are checking out social media these days, and start practicing, your networking. It's really tough. But the good news is, and this is another point that Dr. Hertel will often make, is that networking is like a muscle that you need to start flexing. And the earlier and the better that you get at networking, the better it's going to serve you, not just for this particular, objective of finding an internship, but when finding a job, right, in the job market. This is something that will hopefully help you in the future. Sometimes internships will turn into full-time jobs, right? That's a best case scenario. But that may not always happen. And having that ability to make that outreach and make connections is going to be a big differentiator between you and other people in the workforce. So get involved, throw yourself in there. I know sometimes these competitions and hackathons is a great way to do that. It's good to add that to your resume, right? It shows that you're passionate about something. So there's a lot of different ways to show your passion, but throw yourself into your data science, the area that you're interested in, and then certainly start thinking about the horizon of companies that are out there and how you can get in touch with companies that align to your interests, and start doing that early on. So, all right, next slide, please.
Actually, if
Yeah.
I can just throw
Yeah,
in,
please.
just to state the obvious, quantity is not a substitute for quality. If you're applying for more than 50, 100, something's wrong. Something's wrong with your package. Make sure that you are talking to the Career Center to make sure your resume, LinkedIn profiles are getting reviewed and cleaned up. It really is about tending the garden and developing those relationships, finding people who will carry your resume for you. And that's really what networking is all about, particularly for the international students. I know this is a frustrating time. It's particularly challenging. You've got to have people who are working for you. So cultivate those around you, cultivate every opportunity you get to get in a room and talk to people about what they do and the companies they work for and what gets them passionate, and share your own.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And, that in-person connection is really important. You don't want to just throw a spam email out, to 50 different folks. That's basically like a template. That's not going to be very impactful in helping you get to that internship. Sometimes it is, staying late after a meeting to be able to pull someone aside and talk to them and say, hey, I want to know a little bit more about your company. So getting your foot in the door is going to be important. Where we find, or where you can look, we have some suggestions. You should always use your own resources. We do have programs where we're constantly inviting industry partners on campus. Not only the SDS Monday seminars that I mentioned before, but we have a career center. It's worth stopping by the career center. Many companies are engaged with the university because they know that we're a source of candidates for various things. Professional organizations is a great one. So it's sometimes a little bit more focused in terms of the organizations that are going to show up at different types of things. Look at company career sites, look at LinkedIn, look at career fairs, any type of resource that you can look at that will help you find an internship. Sometimes they align closely to where you would look for a job, right? So you might say, well, it sounds silly to go to a career fair looking for an internship, but it's not, right? Career fair is, in fact, a great way to go and maybe potentially find an internship, right? You can start to talk to recruiters who are typically at these career fairs and so forth. So there are many places to look, basically. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so we do have a website with all the information for the DSBA internship program. We will make sure that we disseminate this information, and if I think it might even be in the SDS email newsletter that goes out. I know sometimes that's a longer newsletter, so make sure you scroll down and look at all the links and resources available there. But we want to establish all the goals that are consistent with the master's and the DSBA program. And we're trying to make sure that you're ready for the real world in terms of your experience. And we have a lot of objectives right here, which is we need to make sure that you're ready. We're good in terms of what we can deliver and do. So I'm very excited to be your faculty advisor for the DSBA 6400 program. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, and we'll still have time to answer a lot of the questions during this seminar as well. All right, next slide, please. I think we have one quick question. Let's see if I can read this real quick.
Yep, we do. So, as a full-time employee, what does an internship look like with your current employer, especially if the data is sensitive?
Yeah, okay, very good question. So a couple of different things to tackle with that question. One, it is okay to do an internship with your existing company. What we usually recommend is that you do it with a different department, excuse me. So you wouldn't necessarily want to use your current manager as your mentor for the internship, but rather use this as an opportunity to maybe reach across your organization and say, for instance, let's say you work in the finance division of your company, and you're really more interested in turning your career towards data science. Well, if there's a data science manager that you can reach out to that works within the same company, this is a great opportunity to reach out to that manager and say, hey, would you be my mentor? And can I help the company with something in your domain? Because I'm interested in a career in data science. So if all goes well with that sort of internship, it might even help you make a leap, right, to a new department that you want to make. That's our recommendation. If you do want to do an internship inside your existing company, we recommend that you find a mentor in a department outside of your normal work to take you on. And you still have to do that 160 hours. It might mean that you're doing some work on your own time, basically, right? It might mean that you're essentially working some late nights, working some weekends in order to get all of those hours in addition to your full-time job, right? So depending on how your work arrangement goes and so forth. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. The other part of the question that I'd like to address is, what if my company has data that's sensitive, right? And I can't really share that information. That's absolutely fine. In fact, we run into that with almost at least half the companies that our interns are working with. Companies, by their very nature, will just have private information that they don't want to share or they don't want to get out of their organization. And that's absolutely fine. So in your project deliverables for DSBA 6400, we never require you to publish sensitive information. What we're looking for is evidence that you've done some work, and evidence that your work is data science work, and evidence that it's helped the company in some significant way. So you can redact specific numbers if you created a model. You don't have to tell us necessarily what the predictors were in that model. You might not even have to tell us exactly how well that model did, right? So, but you do have to be able to make that connection between your work and the benefit of the company, even if it's on a little bit more of an abstract basis, right? Maybe it's not specific benefits and specific numbers, but that we get the overall picture from that engagement. So it's absolutely fine. We don't expect interns to share company data. And I expect all the people who internship or have an intern with a company that they make that sort of clear, right? Which is that the university does not require private information in order for you to satisfy the DSBA 6400 class. All right.
And then, Robert, there's one follow-up question.
Yeah.
What would an internship look like if you work full-time, but you can't do the internship with your employer?
Gotcha. Yeah. So sometimes that, as I mentioned before, that means you're just going to have to be hustling to find time, right? You might have to work evenings or weekends, or work with your current employer to carve out time in order to make that possible for you to work on an internship. So it can be a little bit of a struggle, and it might require that you find an internship opportunity with a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, that's honestly maybe one of the toughest things if you're a full-time employee and I need to get 160 hours in. It's going to be tough, right? So finding the right fit for you and as early as possible is generally what we recommend. So yeah.
Just to throw in On occasion, we do have community agencies who are looking for volunteers to do a project, to take on a project. So I just sent one out that's actually going to be a paid internship, but could be an unpaid internship with CMS. I just sent it out before we logged on. That may be one of those opportunities that you work on an agreement with them. So just the other way to look to community agencies and see if there's a need there.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. So, as I mentioned, just to kind of recap from a timeline perspective, we'll do our proposal 2 weeks prior to the start of the term for the DSBA program. For the HCIP 6400, we're actually wanting that to be closer to a month before the term. And that's because sometimes there's additional administrative hurdles there. You might be required to go through things like criminal background checks or immunizations, et cetera. And getting all of that lined up can be part of the process as well, depending on the company that you've partnered with. We have a mentor contact that we'll sort of need. So when you establish a connection with your mentor, make sure you get their contact information. And as I mentioned before, at the beginning of the semester, we'll just send out a general email basically introducing me as your faculty advisor, and then also kind of the expectation overall from a perspective of this is a student who's trying to satisfy some requirements in partnership with your company. So once you've got all that done, you do need to get your proposal approved. Make sure that you're registered before the drop ad deadline. Hopefully you can get everything lined up well in advance. You can't register until your proposal is approved, right? So it's important to think about that and not delay, and don't wait till the start of the term to simply add 6,400. It's going to be very hard for you to do that. All right.
And there's one more question. Is it possible to submit a proposal before obtaining 21 earned credit hours?
Yes, it is. And the reason why sometimes we can make exceptions because we understand that it's hard to pin down an internship. And sometimes especially if you have some of the core classes and core requirements, we can see that, okay, you're still well prepared for this internship. So for instance, one of the core courses in the DSBA program is the applied machine learning course. So if you've already taken applied machine learning and you have a lot of the other courses that are core and you've found an internship, but you're just short of that 21 hours requirement, then yes, you can submit the proposal, and we'll definitely consider that because we recognize, like I said, it's hard to find an internship opportunity sometimes. And let me say one more thing about timeline. And while we're on this topic, is that in a perfect world, your internship is going to line up to an academic semester. So it would be great if all internships started in September and ended in December, right? But that's not always the case. And if you have an internship that spans, across different academic semesters, we generally recommend that you complete that. You basically have your enrollment in 6,400 during the semester in which you would complete your internship. So in a hypothetical scenario where you have an internship that is going to span from November to March or something like that, we would like you to submit your proposal in November and get that so that we can sort of pre-approve you for enrollment in DSBA 6,400 in the spring. And that way, you will be taking that credit during the spring semester when your internship ends, essentially. But it's still okay to get that proposal done up front at the beginning so that we can get you going with that internship and look at your project plan and have you submit progress reports and all that other stuff. So sometimes timing doesn't line up perfectly to the academic semesters, and that's okay. But yes, getting the proposal done early is important in those cases. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So after your internship, as I mentioned before, we'll have different evaluations that will be sent. you're going to evaluate your experience at this company, and the company is going to have an opportunity to evaluate you as well. It's a very short survey asking, basically, how was your experience? And sometimes that's something that we do just to keep learn from our experience, basically, is what we're trying to do here. So usually not a big deal, but we are trying to make sure that in a perfect scenario, this is a win-win scenario, right? This is a win for the company, and this is a win for you as a student. And usually that's 99% of the time, that's the case. So the evaluations in my mind are not a big deal, but something that we do at the end of the internship. All right, next slide, please. All right, at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Sungjun to talk about the thesis option.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about the thesis option, but as you may aware of this option already, this is not for everyone. I expect that maybe less than 10% of the students will take this option because it's more demanding and requires a lot of commitment, time. Uh, it's for those, however, students who are aiming for, let's say, getting maybe higher degree, a PhD, or let's say doing some serious research in, let's say, corporate world too. So I would encourage this to those who are committed to, let's say, doing research. Those who want to get industry experience definitely want to go for the first option, internship option. And I can tell you that if you are just trying to get some flavor of research, maybe research internship could be your option. But again, the faculty may prefer you being involved in actual research project, meaning thesis option is probably what the faculty prefers. That means having this option, you may find that they'll prefer research, not research internship, but this one. Again, it requires 6 credit hours of work. And it's not just the 6 credit hours of work. It's going to require your proposal defense and the final thesis defense. So I can tell you, yes, you can probably find the research supervisor within the SDS faculty and do research internship just like you do for industry internship, but that's separate from this thesis option. Okay, next slide, please, Carly. All right, so here's the procedure to take this option.
Hang on. Sorry,
One
Sanjay, my
before. Yeah.
computer's going crazy. Let's go back to this one.
Oh, not that one, actually. I think that's procedure. Oh, requirements first. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so requirements, as I said, 6 credit hours. But you can evenly distribute. That's probably what everyone's will do. Everyone will take it. But I would say it's possible you can start early and then start with, let's say, 1 credit hour and then slowly increase. That's possible, although not many will be taking that option. Well, I have to say this is your individual project. So there's no collaboration. It's just a supervision from the thesis advisor. And graduate school has this strict requirement of having a 3-member committee. And it has, again, strict deadlines for thesis defense, proposal defense, and so on. So you have to know ahead of time all this timeline regarding the deadlines. Next, please, Carly. Okay, procedure. The most important step, you need to identify thesis advisor. I believe if you are taking this option, you already have an idea about what your research interests are. So once you know the research interest, you just explore faculty profiles available on the SDS website, and maybe you find the best fit, and you can ask the professor whether they can be supervising your thesis. Well, if you get the agreement, you can complete this master thesis form, which will involve some rough, let's say, topic and areas. And you can also you also have to specify your credit hour plan, whether you want to take it in 2 semesters, 4 semesters, how you distribute these credit hours. And then you're going to be uh, submitting this to your advisor, get the approval, and also you have to send it to a graduate program director, and you get the final approval. Then you can then start working on your thesis. So all of these have to be done before enrolling in thesis research course, which is, I believe, DSBA 6991. Next, please, Carly, next slide. So that thesis research course, 6991, you will get letter grade, and it will be offered only in regular semesters. So we want you to work on thesis actually for at least 6 months full time. Although you will be taking other courses too, yes. Property defense and final thesis defense can occur in the last semester when your graduating semester. However, it is recommended that you defend your proposal first. And regarding these credit hours, you can use those credit hours for electives if you are also taking the industry internship. So it is possible you can do both. Again, it is also possible that you get all these credits and may not graduate because you have to successfully defend your master thesis. So these are the things that you should know if you want to take this option. And I'll be more than welcome to answer any question. I think this is the last slide, right, Carly? Do we have another one?
Yep, I think this is the last one.
Yeah.
So are there any questions for either Dr. Fox or Dr. Park regarding the internship or the thesis? And I will share the slide deck so you all have all the links that are queued up here.
If you have questions, feel free to come off mute and just ask directly. It's fine.
Yeah, Professor Fox, this is Nathan Schaaf.
Yep.
I'd sent you something a while back and you said it looked like it was a good idea. I'm actually going to meet with that company probably next week to talk about the possibility of like an unpaid internship for the project. Should I meet with you before then to get my ducks in a row before I chat with them? Or is there anything I need to relay to them other than what you've shared today?
So you're
Yeah,
talking about the industry internship then, right?
Yeah, it'll be within industry. It's actually a company based out of Omaha, Nebraska, a nonprofit who's looking to expand into other cities. So I'd be kind of doing like a market analysis research for them.
Yeah, I
gotcha.
think as long as Professor Fox approves, it should be good, right?
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need to talk to me ahead of time as long as you understand the expectations between you and the company. So some of the basics that we talked about here today, which is, this internship should be at least 160 hours. It could be longer than that, right? That's not a problem necessarily. The other thing is making sure that they understand that you need to do some data science work. So for instance, sometimes internships don't get the best work within the company. They're like, oh, we need someone to just do Tableau reports. And they'll just go off and make you do Tableau reporting or something all semester long. But setting that expectation early on that say, you know what, I can do some of the Tableau reporting for you, but I also need to do maybe a predictive model that will go into one of these Tableau reports or some data science work that will go into this internship as well. So as long as you lay down those expectations as you're talking with a company, and generally everyone's receptive, you don't need to talk to me before you engage with the company. So if you ever have any confusion on the requirements, that's when you can reach out to me. But generally speaking, I'd say if you feel like you understand generally what we're talking about here today, go out and have those conversations and make those connections with those people that potentially could be your mentor, and then be prepared to enter the proposal. And I think Carly mentioned she's going to send out the information. Part of the information will also have a link to the DSBA 64 proposal form. So you can see exactly what we require there, right? And it's pretty basic stuff. It's like mentor, organization name, organization address. Where are you physically going to be during the internship? What is the contact information for your mentor? And then what are the basic tasks that you're going to be performing, or what is the bulk of the work that you're going to be doing for the company? So it's pretty basic information, but being prepared to enter something on that proposal form, I think, is where your goal is at this point.
Okay. And then aside from like obviously open source, but licensed software such as like Tableau or SAS, like I know I have access to both of those through the university. Am I okay to use that for an internship program, a company that I'm working for?
Yeah, you're going to have, that's a really good question. You're going to have to abide by the rules and procedures of the company that you're working with. So in a case where the company has strict data controls, they may not want to just give over information for you to use, right, on your personal laptop or on your school laptop. Obviously, it's fine from our perspective, from the university's perspective. You can use whatever tools that the company would like you to use, but just be aware that there might be some restrictions there. And I know in some cases, like if you're working for maybe a financial services company or something like that, they might even issue you like a company laptop, and you have to use a company laptop to do all your work, right? So you just have to work within the confines of what that company or organization does in their normal procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. All
Another
right.
question.
Yeah. Was there another question? Maybe. All right. Well, if you think of other questions, please reach out. You can reach out to me directly if you're asking about the internship, or Dr. Park if you're interested in the thesis option. We'll be happy to help you out. There's a wealth of information, so please read through all the information as well before reaching out to us. But we're invested in making you successful, and I think these are great opportunities that are part of the DSBA program. So I'm excited to see what everybody does and what you can get involved in and what kind of work you can accomplish. So unless there are any other questions, no.
Thank you, Dr. Park and Dr. Fox both. Appreciate your insight. And yes, I will follow up and share this with everyone. So thank you all for being on the call today.
All right. All right. Very good.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.